Hey everybody, this is my 10-gallon living room tank, and tonight it got some much needed maintenance. I didn't do a lot, but I got in there and I did a pretty significant water change. Whenever I do a water change on this tank, it's always a significant water change. I just do the 5-gallon bucket, and in fact, because of the displacement of the gravel and the rocks and everything in there, I seldom even do a 5-gallon water change, and that's more than half the tank, and that's pretty significant water change. So I did that. I also did a filter change, which I always do whenever I do one of these smaller tanks with the hang on the back filters. They're pretty easy to do. But I also got in there and I wiped down the glass. This is one of those tanks that I just don't spend very much time looking at, or I don't see very often. I don't come in this room a whole lot. And as a result, the glass tends to slowly get covered in those little green dots, it's green spot algae. And so I had a lot of that. And normally when the room is not being prepared for shooting a video, there's a lamp right next to this tank that is lit, and the right-hand panel of glass on this tank is covered in algae because of the excess amount of light that it gets. So I wiped all that down and did a little bit of a minor gravel vacuum. This is one of the few tanks that I also do a gravel vac when I get in there, but I really wasn't picking up a lot of stuff, so I didn't worry too much about it, and I kind of veered away from that and steered more towards getting the glass cleaned up. And then finally what I did was get in there, and some of this Java Fern was growing a little bit long. It was down off the end and growing up against the glass and kind of blocking all the end of the tank. So I snipped that off, and that is now downstairs in my gourami tank that is being treated for blackbeard algae right now. I've actually got the tank blacked out, and it's been dark for a couple days now, and I pulled some of the Java Fern out that was covered in the blackbeard algae. And since I snipped this off, and you can see how beautiful all this looks, I went ahead and stuck this down there in the tank. It's still dark, but I don't care. It's not like it's going to get new algae attaching to it while it's dark. And then of course when I light the tank back up, I'm going to go in there and do some other things and so on and so forth. So there'll be some updates on my gourami tank coming up soon enough. Right now I just haven't been doing a lot down there with the tank dark and everything. I've been just kind of staying out of the room and leaving it alone. So tonight we are upstairs here in my living room, and this is the tank I worked on. So again, not a lot to talk about really. I'm trying to, think of anything I can say about this tank other than what you see is what you get. The two live bears you see in there, one is a Mickey Mouse platy, and that's the one on the left here. It's very red, and if you look at the markings right by the tail, it has one round black spot with two smaller round black spots that you can easily see why it's called a Mickey Mouse platy. And then this one I'm not so sure about. I think this one's a sunset platy, but I'm not 100% on that. And again, these were given to me by somebody. One of my viewers sent me some fish that they could no longer house, and I agreed to take them. And here they are. And I'm very happy with them. They're very pretty fish. And this one actually looks like a long-finned. If it ever stands that dorsal fin up, it's got a really elongated dorsal fin for a platy. And I've never seen a long fin platy before, or a sail fin platy or whatever, but that certainly appears to be something along those lines. But cool little fish, nice little tank, not a lot going on, nothing really elaborate. I always think this is a good example of how you can set a tank up nice and simple. You don't have to buy a lot of expensive fish, you don't have to buy a lot of difficult to care for fish, and you don't have to have a lot of complicated plants or anything else. This is some Java Fern right there in the middle, and then you can see I've got a little bit of Anubias on the right, and that's simple aquarium gravel. There's no fancy planted substrate. I don't put any foods or ferts or anything in this tank. In fact, I do very little of this tank. It gets fed once a day. Either my wife feeds it when she's in here, or I myself feed it once a day, and that's about it. About once every, I don't know, if I had to be honest, I'd probably say every 2 months. It may not be that long, but it feels that long. Maybe every 6 weeks it gets a water change. Now it gets a significant water change, but it still goes a long time between water changes. And I dare say if we were to do a nitrate test on this tank, we would probably get a fairly red vial, as we do in most of my tanks. But this is also one of those tanks that I just don't mess with it. I've maintained it this way for years, and you can see it's a happy, healthy tank. I don't have any algal growth in it. You know, this is the first time I've had to wipe the glass down, and I don't even know how long. I don't remember the last time I wiped the glass down in this tank. So it's just one of those tanks that just ticks over like a machine, and I'm happy with it that way. I do have 3 peppered quarries on the bottom. If you've noticed the fish scuttling around on the bottom down there and wondered what they were, those are Corydoras palliatus, or peppered quarries, and I really like them. They're one of my favorite quarries. I have them in a lot of my tanks. They're fairly small for even for quarries. They stay small, and they're a pretty fish, and they're just easy to care for. Again, one of my favorite quarries there. So that's about it. That's my living room tank. That's an update. I don't do much video on this tank, and this is pretty much why, because there's not really a lot to talk about with it. So, nice little tank. I enjoy it. You can check out the playlist if you want. Make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss anything else I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. So, thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.